Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Hearth Bound, where three lifelong friends set out on a virtual quest through the pages of iconic book series, all while celebrating each mechanical and human error with a savory slurp of our smoothest stout, or that box wine that got pushed to the back of the fridge. My name is Matt Mullen, and I'm accompanied by Lou Chapman and Sean Martz, the Tyler Durden and Fight Club, to my inability to stop talking about Fight Club. Before we get started, I wanted to give a huge shout out to our friends and favorite tech talkers over at Coding Blocks Podcast for giving Hearthbound a very generous shout out on their latest episode. You should definitely go check it out, and while you're there, check them out. You can find them anywhere you bump your podcasts. I would also like to give an equally epic thank you to Apple Podcasts for adding Hearthbound to the Book Lovers Corner list. We are an insanely good company and have definitely enjoyed meeting fellow podcasters and simply being associated with such amazing people. As the very wise and very excellent Wayne and Garth once said to a very chill Alice Cooper, "We're not worthy, we're not worthy." Anyway, without any further proverbial pats on the back, let's get back to the story. In today's episode, we will be laying Chapter 3 to rest, wink wink, covering the final sections of The Lesser Evil in The Last Wish, the first book of the Witcher series. So pour one out for the homies, toss another log on the fire, and don't forget to open the flue, you dummy, because this is Hearthbound.
I don't have the intro. I don't have the intro or the outro.
What? Oh.
Whatever will we do, guys?
Oh, wait, there it is. How did you find it?
It was on my computer.
Right where it should be.
Well, welcome, listeners, to episode 7 of Hearthbound, where three childhood friends do our utmost not to embarrass each other too bad.
Just try your best. That's all you can ask
That's all you can ever ask for, is just do your best.
Do your best.
And sometimes your best is just not enough. Columbus Blue Jackets letting me down in Game 2.
Oh, jeez.
But we will not get involved with the sports ball. Welcome, everyone, into episode 7 of Hearthbound. We are excited to bring it to you. We are in the middle of the Lesser Evil chapter of The Last Wish, the first book in the Witcher series. And it's a very important chapter, or a special chapter, because this is, anyone who's only watched the show, this is the first encounter you have with Geralt of Rivia. I think the book, as it does with most things, goes into another stratosphere of ethical and subtext language and problems and just like this whole meta layer of, I don't know, like just life, right, guys?
Dude, so far this has been one hell of an intro. I just gotta hand it to you.
Because I'm really excited
so far
about
you've
this
been
one.
killing it.
I'm really excited about this one.
I think it's good that you brought up Netflix because it's really hard. I think we've had this discussion before where characters, you just visualize them. Like watching the show first, like watching the Harry Potter movies first, kind of helped me visualize what the characters look like. But when you have things like two different Dumbledores, I'm always the first one. Like that was my first exposure to Dumbledore, so that's what he looks like. But I'm trying to read it in a way where it's different. Like all these characters, I'm trying to imagine them as they're described, and it's really difficult. But I think in terms of the way Netflix went about doing this, like adapting the text to make it fit their show, they really focused on the fighting and the action and the choreography, which the book did the opposite. They focused on like this heavy moral that we'll get into later, and primarily like a third of my notes.
Yeah, mine too.
It is mind-blowing. Like you said, this is probably one of the most important chapters in terms of questions that we've been asking throughout the book so far about morality and about what a monster is. And we kind of learn that as we go through.
So is the whole first season on Netflix this chapter?
No, it kind of jumps around. There's a lot of things that we've read, honestly, that aren't in the show yet. I don't know what they're doing for season 2, if they're just going to the next book or if they're tying in more stuff. I really hope they tie in like that vampire thing with Nivellen. That would be so cool.
I think the Nivellen tie-in would be really cool. And there's no mention. I shouldn't say there's no mention. I don't know if she's mentioned, but you do not meet Neneka in the show. But this chapter that we're about to finish reviewing is the first episode, along with some other things. But this is primarily the first episode of Netflix's Witcher series.
And before we get started with this, I don't know if I should play a sound. I don't know if I should do a thing, but I feel like we are somewhat responsible.
Oh, God,
Last episode, we made a reference to a local
weatherman.
A Mr. Dick Goddard, who is no longer with us. I mean, right after we post that episode, a few days later.
Was it the episode or I just posted the clip?
Oh, no. Oh, the clip.
Yeah, the clip. And then
the clip from the episode.
The next day, we get the tragic news that a local Cleveland legend, Dick Goddard, has passed away. I haven't read anything else about it, and if it was COVID or what the deal was, but a long life there in Cleveland, Akron area. Local legend. If you haven't looked him up because of that clip, look him up now. He was a good guy. But kind of crazy. We post that clip about him, and then the next day he's dead.
I'm going to blame you, Lou.
I mean,
I think it's 100% my fault.
I think it's Matt's fault.
I did the whole woolly bear blood thing. That's all me.
Yeah, he knew we would start raising questions. Oh, okay, moving on.
We've discovered his secret. And never mind.
All right, moving on.
We're going to cut it there.
So back to the book, or to start with the book.
Where are we?
We are in chapter 4, and it is titled The Lesser Evil, and we are in part 3 of it. Mm-hmm. We'll start part 3 right now. The previous 2 parts were just...
Wait, chapter 3.
Oh, it is chapter 3. My apologies.
The Lesser Evil. 50%. It's all right. You got this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that a drinking game?
I'll take a sip to that. So
mistakes were made. Drinks
more or
were
less,
sipped.
this chapter, The Lesser Evil, Geralt comes to town with a monster that he has just slain, the Kikimora, which is so fun to say, and can't sell it to the local alderman. Goes to a wizard. Goes to a wizard to see if he can find some use for it and sell it to him. Turns out the wizard somebody knows, Stregobor, just the most wizardiest wizard you've ever seen. Stickers on the website. And that's where we are right now, is they just met back up, and Stregobor kind of told them why he's there. So I say we just go to part 3. What do you guys think?
Yeah, they kind of left it on this uncertainty where Stregobor is essentially scared for his life. He wants Geralt to kill this human who is chasing him, who he continues to refer to this human as a monster, and which in the last episode, Sean also referred to this Renfrey or Shrike character as a monster. So there is a lot, as I said before, about this whole idea of what a monster is. And Stregobor kind of leaves us on that note of, uncertainty, because he's like, Geralt, I need your help. Like, this is what Witchers do. They hunt monsters. Like, you killed a Kikimora. Why can't you do this? And he's like, I'm not going to kill or murder a human for you because you've met your match. And he goes, oh, you will. And then it kind of changes gears. So let's kick it off.
Yeah. So with section 3, the alderman and Geralt wind up in a bar. The Elegant Inn. It was crowded, noisy, and here we find out that Renfrey or Shrike is traveling with some companions, and Geralt runs into them. Yeah,
because you learn that Calderman, the elderman of this town, who is friends with Geralt and who Geralt's staying at his house, knows that these, I think there's 6 guys and Renfrey, he knows that they're in town. So he asks the innkeeper, hey, are they staying here or are they staying at the other bar? And the innkeeper's like, they're staying here. They're over in their own little private room. They paid me in gold. I'm hosting my guests, right? Geralt's like, Kelderman, you stay here. I'm going to go talk to these guys, hoping to just talk to Renfrey and just try to meet her and kind of set the tone is kind of the goal I got from Geralt, at least. So he heads on over there and go ahead.
I have a note right here that says, when he heads over there, the alderman says, be careful because I don't want any trouble. And Geralt says, I'll be careful.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, there's definitely going to be trouble.
100%.
100% going to be trouble.
But the cool thing about this scene of Geralt walking over, I imagine him almost like putting a curtain in, like, this is a private room in the back where, they got it rented out, the VIP. And they just look, as they're described, they're all leather. They're like a biker gang.
Yeah.
Different than everyone else. And they're trying to pretend that they don't know who Shrike or Renfrey is when everyone saw them come into town. There's no mistaking it. And Geralt knows, and he's just trying to avoid confrontation. He's like, I don't want to talk to you guys. I just want to talk to Renfrey. And they're like, why? Who's that? I don't know who that is, boys. What do you think?
They're trying to gaslight him.
They each have their own names, and like they do. The author does a really clever job of, at first he describes them, and then as they say each other's names, he fills in their description with their actual name. And it kind of was hard for me, at least listening, to pick who was who because it was all happening so fast. I just wrote, we have Baldy, the twins, Rambo, Half-Elf, and Tyvek. Those are the guys.
Now, I just want to point something out here. If you're following along at the drinking game at home, it's 3 drinks anytime we assign a nickname to a character.
Apologetic.
And that was 5 characters?
This is going to be an abusive episode.
There's 5 characters because Tavik is the last guy's name because they just say his name like right away. So I'm like, okay, I know his name at least.
Allow me to add another one to that. So right off the rip here, from the beginning, they're describing this bar scene. And one of the things that's pointed out by the narrator or the author is that the local nitwits pretend to be well-informed. And I was like, is that a Hearth Bound motto or what? First of all.
I'll drink to that.
But then, he goes in the back, and to me, they were kind of the local nitwits. I know they're not from town, but that would be such a dope indie, like, metal band or something, like Shrike and the local nitwits. Like, bow!
Drop local. Just Shrike and the nitwits.
So along that same line, the way that I pictured them in my head, have you seen Dodgeball?
Yes.
Where that's the leather scene from Dodgeball.
This is
exactly
Blade,
how I pictured them.
Laser.
And if you're
Blazer.
So in this back room, I had a question right off the bat because obviously the Witcher, his appearance is very distinct. Like, there's no mistaking that he is a Witcher. I couldn't tell if they were just playing with him. Like, some of the guys are like, what's a Witcher? You're like, what is that? Or who do you think you are, man? And he goes, or one of the guys points out that he's a Witcher. And he goes, well, what's that? And I was like, does everyone not know? Because this would explain a lot of other questions we had in other chapters where we're like, the townsfolk, the average everyday farmer, whatever, they aren't really aware of the monsters that's behind the scene. It's almost like Witchers are their own secret society that goes and just kills these monsters before they become problems or as they become problems and kind of just sweep it under the rug. But I couldn't tell if they were being serious because they're, like I said, gaslighting him the entire time. They're busting his balls. They're trying to fight him. They're trying to get him to react,
egg him on.
He's just not having it.
Trying to egg him on for a fight. I thought that was fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Geralt lays a very slick your mom joke.
Yeah, well, the half-elf goes like, I can't believe they let inbreeds or whatever he calls them like you in a fine establishment like this. And Geralt just turns and goes, surprised that's coming from you, given the fact that your mother gives you enough worry about where you come from. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, he's like, she just wanders around the woods. It probably keeps you guessing where your dad is. It's like, oh,
damn,
Geralt.
And then he claps back, right? And he says, at least I knew my mother. He's like, you Witchers can't say that about yourself.
Yeah, verbal parry.
And we get like the first viewing of Geralt kind of like getting ticked off. Because one of the guys says he notices it and he tries to like egg Geralt on more like, oh, you're really going to let that happen? Or are we going to go outside and handle this?
This is just like hockey chirping.
Yes, it's exactly what it is. I'm so glad you brought that up and not me.
Seriously, it's just, I imagine almost like that Letterkenny vibe of that. No one's standing yet, really, but the twins. And they're just not moving, but their lips are flapping like real quick. And Geralt's just like,
Yep.
Goes, oh, you gonna get upset there, bud? Like, gonna cry about it? Why don't you get your mom? Oh, that's right. You don't know who that is.
Cute jacket. Does it come in men's?
Yeah.
Then after this chirping fest, Renfrey like enters this little alcove that they're in, and she kind of like, what's going on here? And a couple of the other guys are like, he's a Witcher. We don't like him. And Renfrey kind of goes, so what? Well, he wanted to talk to you. So what?
The one guy's name is 15, and he puts his fists up like, all right, we're going to fight. And if you don't want to fight, I'm just going to punch you in the face. And Geralt like, listen, if you come closer, I'm just going to cut you down. I'm not playing this by the rules. I don't care about your rules. Like, if you attack me, I will kill you. And then right as that's about to happen, Renfrey comes in and she's like, boys, settle down. Everybody just calm down. You guys go back to drinking. Witcher, you come with me. I wanted to talk to you anyway.
Well, I also wanted to point out that to calm them down, Renfrey just uses this tone, and I just imagine that teacher tone of just like, stop it. And like, and the author even says, and he stopped immediately. And there was something about her voice, and I really like this one too. Something about her voice, like fire reflecting off steel. And I was like, ooh, I can hear that. Why can I hear that? But that is crisp and clean. I like that.
Like Sibril, I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah, he's the half-elf.
And he is the one who's still stirring the pot. He's throwing the spice in. He's trying to get a reaction out of Geralt, even though Renfrey just told everyone, like, settle down. It's not a big deal. But yeah, the line is, shut up, Sibril, immediately. Ooh. Period.
Sibril was laughing because they had mentioned the town market. And he said, yeah, it's an important event. And he busts up laughing. And it's a bit of foreshadowing for the next couple chapters here. I just thought it was really interesting, the foreshadowing in these chapters that the author uses.
Everything is teased throughout this whole book, but this chapter especially. And so the two of them, Renfrey and Geralt, kind of go off to the bar, back to the common area. And Kelderman does his best police chief impersonation and tries to tell Renfrey, get out of town. I know you're up to no good. And Renfrey pulls out the hall pass of this like letter of immunity from the local king. And Calderman kind of just goes, I can't touch her. He pretty much gives up and says, okay, I can't throw you in jail, but you better leave here tomorrow.
Yeah. And then, I mean, he takes his ball and goes home after that. He takes Geralt with him. He just says, come on, man, we're done here. There's nothing I can do. And Geralt's like, okay.
Yeah, but Renfrey kind of like grabs him away for one more moment, and they start talking, and more or less they come to an understanding that Renfrey is going to kill Stregobor, or she's going to harass this town. And Geralt says, I can understand that you want to kill Stregobor, but the way I see it, several other people might also get hurt in the process. And Renfrey goes, several other people is putting it mildly. So you get this immediate emotion that she's in this for the long haul and she doesn't care who gets in her way. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, in this circumstance, Geralt, I think he's kind of enjoying Renfrey's character. Just her first impression with Geralt is we are meeting on the same level. She works like he works. The argument tactics, the very like matter of fact, I'm going to say this to you and I mean it. And there's no compromise. And that's how Geralt works. I think back to the last chapter, like the voice of reason, when Neneke is like talking trash to those two guards. Or I think it was this chapter. You know, Geralt's just like, hey, how about you shut up, kid? I'm going to shove that sword up your butt and kick you out of here.
Yeah, before I spank you.
Before I spank you with the flat blade of your sword. One other thing I wanted to point out before we move on, if you guys are okay with it.
Yeah.
Geralt says her name Shrike, not Renfrey. He calls her Shrike, and she bites back at him and says, don't call me that. That's not my name. I kind of got a weird impression because I feel like that's the kind of name that you get because you're doing certain things. She got that nickname because she impaled men, right?
It's a literal bird of prey. Like sharp beak impales.
So why does she not like it? If like her actions gave her that name, why does she not like it?
I think it's that monster vibe. I think she doesn't want to be associated with the beast that everyone thinks she is.
Prey.
So I got a very James Bond woman villain out of Shrek. Right? She's kind of like the calm, cool, collected, like keeping it classy, like, boys, settle down, everybody go back to their drinks, it's fine, you come with me. And one of the reasons that I got that was the alderman has to take his ball and go home. He basically tells Geralt, come on, Geralt, we're leaving. And Renfrey says, hold on, I want a word alone with you. Mr. Bond, if a word alone.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
I can. The alderman says, okay, but LaBouche is waiting. Like, my wife's waiting for dinner. Like, don't be late to that. And so the very last chapter as they're leaving is Renfrey kind of teasing Geralt. She's like, is she pretty? You should go. She's waiting.
Is LaBouche pretty? Like, the way the voice actor does it, like, is LaBouche waiting? Is she pretty? And it's just like, man. Oh, damn, Renfrey.
Yeah, and then and Geralt, I think at that point can't help but like smile a little bit. And then in my head and they call it puppy love. Like he's just he's so into it. He's like, man, she's good.
And then one other thing before we move on from this chapter, I have a vocab word. Brusque, I believe was the word. Brusque.
I don't remember this word.
Yeah.
What is? Tell me.
It just means curt, like somebody was like in a very brusque manner.
Oh.
But I didn't recognize it, and it's different. I guess I always assumed it was brisk, but it's brusque. So it's kind of abrupt and offhand, just like beer.
Birds.
Battlestar Galactica. Okay, chapter 4. We can move on.
Section 4.
Cool. Or section 4. Thank you.
Just diving in.
Another cutscene here, and this is after dinner. Geralt's back at the alderman's house, and he's going up to his room in the attic, and he knows that somebody's there for him. Surprise! It's
his
Renfrey.
Witcher sense was tingling.
Oh, yeah.
I am now starting to look at this section as a James Bond thing because all those like euphemisms and quick puns by the women, like Bond has them at gunpoint and she's like, oh, is that all you're going to do with that gun? And it's like, oh, they're so badass. But then Renfrey does the same thing because it's pitch black and Geralt's got his cat eyes. And I thought of Bane immediately from Batman, like, Renfrey merely adapted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. And he just like tackles her in the darkness. Like he blew out his lantern and just tackles her and has his forearm to her throat. And she's just like, oh, at least let me get my boots off. And I'm like, oh, this is, she's so good.
The quote is, well, I didn't expect us to be in bed this quickly.
Yeah. That is such a James Bond movie thing. Oh, I love it.
So they get to talking after Geralt gets off of her and lets her sit on the table across from the bed. And she kind of becomes a little bit more frank with him, kind of more open about her plans. And I mean, we'll get into everything they talk about. But one of the first things that I noticed is he calls her strike again, and she doesn't like it again. And she snaps back at him and says, I'll forgive you my royal titles, but you will not call me that. She still thinks of herself with her royal titles, but she hasn't been a princess, quote unquote, for years.
I read that differently. I read that was her being sassy and like, you don't have to call me a princess, but don't call me that. That was just her being sassy. That's how I read it.
I kind of feel what you're saying, Lou, because there is that sense of she brought it up. She didn't have to say anything about being a royalty at all, but she kind of nods to it. And I think this is her trying to convince Geralt that she is not the monster in this case. Because in the bar, they kind of brought that up. And she, the whole strike thing, don't call me that, don't call me that. I think she's really trying to sell him that she is not in the wrong right now. Because she wouldn't be there otherwise and sitting in the dark waiting for him, And
she does bring it up again at the very end of this part, but we'll get there when we get there. So they get to talking, and you come to find out that that Geralt and Renfrey are looking at the current scenario as only two possible outcomes. Well, three if you count them all together, but they each only can see two of them. Geralt sees it as Renfrey kills Stregobor, or Renfrey forgives Stregobor. And then Renfrey sees it as she kills Stregobor or Geralt kills Stregobor. Because they both realize that one of those is going to happen, but each of them only accept two out of those three. So Renfrey is almost in like a different reality than Geralt in this point. Like she has her mind made up. This is what she's going to do. And the rest of this chapter, she's going to try to convince him that she's not a monster, like Matt just said.
And that kind of puts Geralt in a rock between a hot rock, a rock and a hard place. Well, she is one hot rock, I can tell you that. It's just how she's described. I have the textual evidence. But anyway, he is in a really tough spot because she is using the almost exact same argument as Stregobor used against her. So he always has a highway option. I'm not getting involved. But then he's starting to hear her out. I'm like, crap, I'm going to be involved. I don't want to be involved. And no matter what I do, I'm going to have to draw my sword at some point based on this conversation. So he's really trying to convince her not to do what she really, really wants to do.
In this moment, she goes through and she basically tallies up all the terrible things that he did to her. Mm-hmm. And she goes, do you think he deserves to die? And it's a real conversation question, right? This isn't a rhetorical question she's asking. And he says, I'm no judge, I'm a witcher. And I thought, well, that's a bit of a cop out there. Yeah. Okay, like I'll see it. And then she immediately after that, just like you said, the same argument Strigobor had of you kill monsters, this one's a monster.
Yeah.
She uses the same exact argument, which I just thought was
and the same exact example. The Kikimora, she brings it up.
They
like
both brought that
Kikimora
up too.
was just eating, to survive, and Strigobor is evil. And Geralt's like, oh, here we go. I've heard this before, literally.
Renfri kind of uses that same logic as herself. Like, I'm just doing what I'm going to do. I'm getting my revenge. That doesn't make me a monster. But the person that put me in this position is a monster. And here's why. And like it describes her whole life over the past, I don't know, maybe dozens of years. And it's rough for listeners that haven't read it. You could probably find it online real quick. We won't get into all of it, but she starts to prove her humanness after this point, where she talks about how, I don't know if I'm a monster. I don't think I am.
Before we go into that, I just wanted to say this whole time there's an extra layer, there's an extra dimension where she's flirting with Geralt a little bit and trying to seduce him.
Oh, the whole time.
Not only is she, here's all the things that you should feel bad for me for, but also I kind of like you and you should like me just for liking me. Not in addition to all of these things.
Yeah, the strangest part of this conversation is I started to notice a lot of the parallels between Snow White. I said in the last episode, this is a badass Snow White, but she has been through some pretty awful things just in her life, not against monsters, not against, like, she talked about rape. She talked about, being abused and used for all these things. She ran away because she didn't want to get murdered by her stepmom via poison apple. So like there are so many parallels to Snow White, but this is almost darker than Grimm's version. Like she has some really messed up things happen to her. The 7 gnomes thing, like she didn't eat the apple or pass out and get kissed by a prince or all that, but she's just like, I've had to survive. Mm-hmm. You understand what that's like, Geralt. She throwing the ball back in his court. Like, you can't tell me I'm wrong because you would do the same thing. And he's having a hard time saying no.
He's having a hard time with it. He's having a very hard time with it, but he kind of takes his Witcher argument and puts it in her own world, right? Right. Her version of the Witcher argument and saying, look, there's a possibility that you kill Strigobor. Yes. But there's also a possibility that you find it in your royal forgiveness to just pardon him and, don't seek your revenge and just let it go.
Yeah, prove you're not the monster.
Yeah, prove you're not the monster. And I think it's interesting because Geralt kind of flips her argument and says, choose the lesser evil. You could be evil and kill him. Or you could choose the lesser evil and choose to forgive him. While, yes, he's done evil things and that in itself is a bad thing, but Geralt's saying it would be more evil to kill him. So I thought that was interesting that he's like, I'll flip your lesser evil argument and use it against you.
And to Sean's point with the whole sexualized aspect, how she's almost trying to seduce him the entire time, I just thought that was really odd and sketchy. But Geralt didn't seem to notice. It was almost like that dramatic irony of we know what she's trying to do, but Geralt kind of doesn't.
Or is at least ignoring it.
He's at least ignoring it. But I mean, it's obviously, as we know, gets somewhere. But he
comes to a head.
Yeah, quite literally. But to that point, it's really odd. She brings up all the sexual abuse and things like that. But then she talks about this point of, I had to use my body to survive, and I'm willing to do that. And she's almost doing that to Geralt, which is kind of wild. Like, she's not hiding anything. She's being really honest. But Geralt's kind of, it seems anyway, that he's looking over that. Like, she might be doing that to you right now, and you don't know.
I don't know if he's looking over it as much as he's trying to play it cool.
Yeah. Well,
like, okay, hot girl,
it's
gotta play
James
it cool.
Bond scene. We know this is totally James Bond.
That's the vibe I got.
Like,
so she says something really interesting. She flips the script on him and says, well, you could kill him mercifully. One thrust, he'll die without ever knowing. She's like, that's better than what I'm going to do to him. She's like, so if you really want to save everybody in this situation, if you want to play the hero, you should kill him because I'm going to kill him no matter what. And I'll kill him. If I need to kill the whole town, I'll do it. And Geralt asks, do you know why he wants to kill you? And she says, well, because, I'm next in line for the throne. He goes, no. And she goes, oh, they say I'm a monster. And he says, yeah, well, are you? And this was the most human moment I think that we saw out of Renfri. It says, For a fleeting moment, she looked helpless, shattered, and very sad. And so it was kind of this whole idea of like, oh, maybe she's not a sociopath monster that doesn't have any qualms about killing a whole village.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get to see this human emotion in her where she's like, I hoped you would believe that I'm not a monster. Like, I hoped you, of all people who has to deal with monsters on a daily basis, the monster hunter, could obviously see I'm not the monster. Like, I just told you all of the terrible things that happened to me. How can you not understand
why I want revenge?
That's how I got where I am.
Why I want this revenge. And I think it's cool that, like, they both say that Kikimora doesn't know it's a monster. So Renfri kind of is assimilating with that, saying, like, I don't know if I'm a monster. And she kind of goes through these things like, you know, if you poke me with a stick, I bleed. You know, if I get too drunk, I have a hangover the next day. If I'm sad, I curse. If I'm happy, I giggle. Like, I think I'm a person. I'm a human. I am what I am. This whole overarching story throughout all these chapters of what is a monster. Is it who you are, or is it what you do that makes you a monster?
Obviously, that theme or that moral has been changed and manipulated in all kinds of stories. But the way that this book kind of approaches it, you're introduced in the very beginning of the book to real monsters, like a Striga. That is a monster. That is something that we have grown to know as a monster. But then when it comes to people, it's totally different. They're like, oh, that's a serial killer. They need to be locked up. They don't deserve to die, but they deserve justice.
Yeah.
But in this case, you know, this medieval-ish time period, and to kill someone would be totally normal. And Geralt has done that. He's chopped people down for way less in the beginning. He's chopped them down in a bar.
We've seen.
Right? So he is no stranger to this. And to me, I know that you guys kind of feel the opposite, but I think that she is just hardcore trying to manipulate Geralt. And I'm not entirely certain at this point that he is so calm, cool, collected in his brain, because he kind of buys into what she's saying at the very end, where she's like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not.
That's jumping ahead a little bit, but I think you bring up a really interesting point, Matt. Damn it, I said interesting. I think you bring up a very fascinating point about the arc of this book in general. The first chapter was kill the monster or turn it. There are no other options. If you can't turn it, you kill it. The second chapter, we have this blurred line, right? So they blur the line of what a monster is with Nivellen. Now there's a real monster, the vampire, what's the word?
The Bruxa.
Yeah, the Bruxer. Yeah.
Babushka.
Baba Ganoush. So they blur that line with Nivellen isn't quite a monster, but he's fallen in love with a monster, and the monster fell in love with him. So a monster can have feelings. So we're evolving our definition of a monster. It's not just a mindless killing machine, right? Okay, well, now it's a mindless killing machine that can also love, and it can love other monsters.
Which just makes it hard to be a Witcher, man.
Yeah.
You got to make so many tough calls. You got to plant your flag, and that's a monster. I got to kill it. And at this point, Sean, all the things that you're adding up here, this is coming to a peak. And I know this is almost towards the middle of the story, but this is just one short story, which amazes me throughout this entire book, because every single chapter has one of these high climactic moments. And I know that it usually ends in a sword fight or some kind of battle. But in this case, this is a lot of mental. Like for me, the antagonist, this opposing force against Geralt, has been this morality battle. What is right? What is wrong? What is a monster? They've pointed out to him, like, Kikimora just kills to eat, man. He's like, wow, crap, you're kind of right.
Kind of right about that.
But you murder people. Does that make you a monster? Like,
So if you guys are good, before we move on, I just want to bring up one more thing that happens in this part.
Yeah.
Renfri kind of plays off the whole lesser evil thing and says, yeah, there is a lesser evil, but you can never choose the lesser evil in just everyday life. She says only pure evil can make you choose the lesser evil. And I thought that was really interesting that she said, like, there's another layer upon evil, or deeper than evil, and it's pure evil. And when you're picking between the lesser evil and pure evil, you always go for the lesser evil. But if you're just doing the lesser evil versus anything else, you can't make that decision.
super ironic, though, because she's saying that you'd have to be pure evil to make someone choose. And that's exactly what they're asking him to do. Thus,
So
another
is she
layer.
pure evil?
that would make Strigobor evil as well. So this adds another layer of
Oh my
complication
God.
for Geralt because he
It's
said
like
the same
four-dimensional
thing.
chess.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with this morality.
He should just go to bed and just figure out what happens.
At that point, Geralt basically is like, all right, what are you trying to say? And she's like, nothing, I'm drunk, I'm just talking.
Yeah.
And
Pretty much came on the podcast.
So then basically he goes, listen, you're not going to kill him in Blaviken because I'm not going to let you. That's the end of it. You know, he takes his cop out. He's like, listen, you're not killing him in Blaviken, but he said it so many times
He
that
takes
way
his what out?
that I inferred
He takes a cop out.
Thank you, Lewis.
cop out.
That's not what I thought you said. This is a family podcast.
Right. So he cops out. He says, you're not going to kill him in Blaviken. And they say it 3 times, basically. Like, you can't kill him in Blaviken. You can't kill him in Blaviken. You can't kill him in Blaviken. And it's almost like he's hinting, like, just get him out of the city, and then I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, it was like, well, so much for morality. Like, you just want to keep the peace at this point.
Yeah.
But then she says, it's kind of this baby it's cold outside vibe that's going on right now. She's like, the roof's really steep and it's after midnight. And
It's dark.
why don't we just go to bed? And that's where it cuts off.
Well, after
No.
a few more things.
Some other things. Sean, you're allowed to
He's
say sex
spoiling.
on it. There is, they totally do it. They bang it out, but it is. I'm glad you brought that up because that was my note. It's like she's being like, I don't have any weapons on me. Check my boots, and like she lets him take them off, and then she's like, there's nothing under this either. She starts just like undressing, and she's like, see, no weapons, and then she goes, blow out that candle, like you big man, you know, and. So, like, the last thing that they mic drop that section on is Geralt asking, and this is a vocab word, and the way Google says it is cambric. It is, I think it's pronounced cambric or cambric, whatever. Lightweight.
Drink.
Yeah, thanks. Lightweight, closely woven linen, cotton, or fabric. So, to me, I thought that was her underwear. It's just like really nice fabric
Bougie.
underneath her clothes. So, the only conclusion that brought me to is that Geralt reaches it. He's like, is this your cambric? Because they had brought it up a little bit earlier. And she's like, of course it is. I'm a princess, aren't I? And then it ends. So it's like, all right, so they do it. But then again,
Moving on.
moving on to the morning after, Geralt comes strutting down the stairs like a,
First
Hey.
word of the next chapter is daddy.
Oh, yeah, that's
I just want to point that out.
That's right. So
I just want to point
the
that
very
out.
first
because
word.
It is right
Section
there.
5. Daddy?
this 5 is really this section 5 is really quick. It's just Geralt coming down to the breakfast table at Calderman's house, and the first word is Calderman's daughter saying, "Daddy, I want to go to the market." And we learn that market's today or going to be in a few hours, and we find out that Renfri's men were seen getting ready for market as well. And Geralt has this like brain blast moment where he realizes that the strategy that Renfri is going to use is a tactic that they already used at a place called Treedam.
Caldeman basically said, like, listen, I talked to everyone. I can't do anything until they do something. He's like, so we're not going to get in the way. This one dude, he was involved in this really bad thing where they took a boat of people hostage to get some people out of prison. It was in a place called Treedam. Geralt kind of makes a connection that, oh, wait, he was there when he did that, and now he's here, and they were talking about the market last night, and it was, yeah, Jimmy Neutron brain.
Renfri activates the trap card and is about to send this village to the Shadow Realm real quick. And
Yeah.
Yep.
Geralt, he connects those dots and he's out. And I mean, the alderman, he's like, no, Geralt, no, just put your sword down. Ah, geez, there he goes. Like, he's gone. So he's like, crap. He just slept with her, wakes up to the worst Jimmy Neutron brain blast of all time, and he's out. That is section 5 in a nutshell. So then section 6 for me started off with a vocab word, but before we get there, we have all the members of Renfri's little gang kind of suiting up,
Posted outside the market.
posting outside the market. They're kind of making some comments, some puns about what they're about to do to all
The
these
horses
people.
are ready. Do we
Yeah.
eat now? No, eat later. We'll have time.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like, you can tell it's about to go down.
One of the guys, I'll have to get the quote, but the vocab word is askance, which I've never heard that word in my entire life. So the guys in the gang, they're shooting the stuff back and forth, and the half-elf, he is like in the zone. He's not in the mood for fooling around, and he's kind of trying to get everybody to focus and, like eat later, whatever, just shut up. It's about to go down. And they keep going. So like he throws this look, which is with attitude or a look of suspicion or disapproval. So he's just like, dude, why are you? Shut up. Stop talking. I don't need this right now or today. And then like cowboy, James Bond, whatever you want to call him, Geralt comes strutting into town and they see him and they're like, crap, The Witcher, which is kind of funny. I thought of these cheesy like old Western movies like, boys, it's The Witcher. And then like, like tumbleweeds and everything. He just comes rolling in, looks directly at them and starts, beeline straight toward them. And they're like, oh, crap.
They pull up a crossbow on him and they aim it at him. And they're like, all right, don't come a step closer. Renfrey told us to tell you something. And he goes, all right, what do you have for me? And the half-elf, he says, she's making the sorcerer an offer he can't refuse, but she knew you would come. She left a message. She said, I am what I am. Choose either me or a lesser. You're supposed to know what it means.
Ooh.
And so I got this, like, again, this whole chapter was a Bond villain thing for me. Where like, these are the dumb henchmen who are just like, you're supposed to know what it means, boss.
And then he chooses, and they're like, yeah, she said you'd do that. Like,
So what music was going through your head right then, at that moment?
I just had complete silence. Like, I gotta say, I know we're trying to visualize this book as something different than the show, but they just do such a good job of just building that tension because there's no music. And like, I even like drew a little sketch of like this jaw dropped emoji next to Geralt draws his sword. Just just nothing but shing, I guess. Yeah, in the scene, like the town's all turning around like, what? And they have this crossbow drawn and he, Geralt just starts kind of strutting up like, this is what we're doing, boys. I chose.
That moment right there, I heard Mama said, knock you out. I'm going to knock you out.
What?
Yep.
Never heard this song before in my life.
Yeah, you have. LL Cool J, Mama said, knock you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't say I've heard this.
Oh, you guys have definitely heard it. I promise. You're going to hear it and you're going to go, oh, that's right.
All right.
So Geralt starts to make his move. And I think it's, how do you say his name? It's Siveril, the half-elf that has the crossbow, right? So he lets the bolt fly, if it's him. He lets the bolt fly, and Geralt, in Geralt fashion, knocks it right out of the air. And even 15, one of the other guys, is just like, he knocked it out of the air. He knocked it out of the air.
Dude, but that was my moment of like, doy! Yeah, he knocked it out of the air, or else he'd be dead, you idiot. Like, it's just like, how stupid can you be?
Yeah.
It's like, did he just deflect that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So then they go into this. One of the other guys, his name is Nohorn. I don't remember who's who, but one of the other guys, his name's Nohorn, and he tells them all together now. And you kind of get the sense that Nohorn at least realizes if we go at him one at a time, he will kill us all. And they describe it as Geralt running right at him, but not directly to them. As soon as he gets parallel with him, he kind of like starts to circle around them.
Oh, dude. I called him Tiger Shark Geralt.
Exactly.
He just starts spiraling around and tightening the corkscrew around them, and they're like, "No, everybody stay close. He can't fight all of us." And then they can't help themselves. And
yeah, and I think Tavik and someone else, it was one of the first to go after
the
him.
twins.
The twins were
and
the twins, Basil, twins.
But I loved how they said Tavik went first, and I was like, AKA Tavik died first.
Yes,
this is like. This is not looking good for him.
He goes after Geralt, and Geralt, I kind of in a weird way, I had to listen to it a few times to make sure that I had it right, but Geralt runs away as soon as Tavik starts at him, and Tavik kind of chases him, and like I got the sense that like Tavik was like, why is he running away from me all of a sudden? But then Geralt stops on a dime and comes back at him, and then before Tavik can even do anything about it, he's already dead.
For those who have played online video games before, we call that kiting.
Yes. Yes.
For the athletes.
Tactical retreat.
Little hook route.
Yeah, little hook route.
Yeah.
Down out to the
And
left,
then
Geralt.
Geralt goes and the twins, I got a really good visual of this one too, that they describe the twins as running into each other and then trying to both swipe but being too slow, and Geralt slashes one's like leg off is how I understood it, and then the other one he goes through his stomach. I'm like, all right, well, 3 down, 3 to go.
Additionally, I want to point out for those who are playing the Hearthbound drinking games at home, you drink whenever a character dies as well. So
this
that's
is going to be
drinks.
aggressive.
It's going to get bad quick.
I also wrote, and I know this was too much. I couldn't help but rhyme this. But the twins' names are Veer and Namir, if I'm saying that right.
I think you're right.
And they got themselves smeared real quick.
God.
I couldn't help myself. All right. But after that, there's just 15 and several left.
And no horn. 15
and no horn.
Several and no horn.
Which, again, 15, he barely puts up a fight. It's just Geralt is dancing through this. He's just no problem cutting these guys down. And, there was kind of a higher expectation I put on Geralt, at least, because Renfrey was hyping these guys up like, we will murder everyone. They're trained swordsmen. I'm like, there's going to be a fight. And Geralt is just making light work of pretty much everybody.
Yeah, and even Renfrey at the bar, before she came over to the place where he's staying, she even mentions no man can cut 7 warriors down. And he's gotten 3 down already, and then 15 makes number 4. 15 is the character's name, for those that might get confused. But it isn't until now that No Horn and Sivril, who you kind of got were like the alpha and beta of this group, they actually timed their attacks together. But once again, Geralt just blocks both of their downward attacks, shoves them off, slices several on a twist, and then they describe No Horn dying as if he doesn't even know he's been cut until he tries to stand on one of his legs again, and he just cripples under his own weight.
Dude, you know what
that's so cool.
I thought of that scene in Shaun of the Dead when they're in the bar and the zombies start coming in and Queen, Don't Stop Me Now, starts playing. I want somebody to dub Don't Stop Me Now over this scene for the Netflix.
Oh, yes.
So bad, tonight I'm gonna have myself. Just him cutting people down. Because he does it effortlessly. It's embarrassing almost for all these guys who were talking so much trash at the beginning of the section to just be cut down like this.
I just have one question. He takes care of the whole group, and then Renfrey shows up. And just before we get to the Renfrey, that section, what do you think 15 got his name from?
They kind of nod that he didn't get it from doing good deeds. So I think it's 15 people he's killed. So I didn't know if that was updated every time he killed someone or his favorite number.
I don't know that.
Call me 15.
Okay, what are we calling you today? Are you 37 or 38?
He's just in the middle of the battlefield, like Gimli and Legolas. 45! 46!
That only counts as 1.
That's fair. I just want to know, what 15 things did he do very badly that someone was like, 15, that's a good number? Because you put in 15 electrical outlets, nobody calls you an electrician. You're like, yeah, you get the point, I guess.
Yeah.
But you're not great at it. You kill 15 people, it's like, you've done it before, but
and
you're
why not
really
stop at
badass.
12? Why go to 15?
I'm thinking this is a favorite number. This has nothing to do with what he's done.
But anyway.
I don't know. It's just something that popped in my head. I was like, why is he named 15?
In the actual Witcher game, this is how I do all fights. I run away. I kill some guys will follow behind a barn so the person with the bolt can't shoot me from a distance, the crossbow. And I'll just set them on fire and cut them down and then run around, in circles.
Listeners, if you like the Witcher games, we will eventually start playing those games and streaming them. Make sure to follow us on Twitter so you can see us absolutely suck at these video games.
I'm going to be awful. I don't know parries. I know set on fire and cut down and run. That's the S on my keyboard is definitely not an S anymore because I run so much.
All right, so then Renfrey comes in.
Boss fight.
And you kind of get the sense of, and she's like, well, you made quick work of them. And she even says that, well, Geralt, you made your decision, but it turns out it wouldn't have mattered because Stregobor said I could have murdered everyone in this town and the next town over, and he still wouldn't have come out. So I don't know if that's her playing him and making him feel bad, or I don't know if there was a mind game to that. but I thought it was kind of strange that she brought it up at all. And
No, she says, why are you looking at me like that? Yes, I deceived you. I'll deceive anyone if I have to. Like, why should you be special?
yes,
So Geralt felt betrayed. Geralt caught those
Again,
feelings.
emotions, those feelings. I'm telling you,
He swiped right. He blocked him.
ooh,
there's something going on with Geralt. We're not even halfway through the book, but
What's
there's something
eating
going on.
Geralt
with,
grape?
What is eating Geralt grape? He
Yeah.
needs to get his, I mean, against men, he's just slicing them down.
no worries.
Or monsters. Men and monsters.
Yeah.
Of monsters and men.
Yeah.
There it is, folks.
That's a band. I'm pretty sure.
He even gives her the final chance and he says, get out of here, Renfrey. And she's like, no, we're doing this.
Yeah.
I've made my choice. You've made yours. Like, we're going to see what's going to happen.
Well, let's pump the brakes real quick and just give a shout out
Sure.
to all the market vendors. You know, for the one event they looked forward to all year long, ruined. Before it even got started, people were just setting up their carts, their fish carts, their, the crops, everything, and Geralt just starts slicing people down. It's like, come on. This is all they had. It's just like Rampage.
I think 15 is in a fish cart, and then I think Travik is in a cabbage bucket or something like that.
Yeah, embarrassed.
Embarrassed at markup mix-up.
There's like almost a calm before the storm. They're having a conversation, but they're also preparing for what's about to happen. Geralt's trying to talk her off a ledge, and she's not budging. So he's starting to, get ready. He's doing his signs. He's like, it's gonna be bad. And she's like, dude, don't even bother with those signs. They don't work on me. Just buckle up, buddy.
Oh, and she draws her sword, or she draws a sword, and then she takes her skirt off.
She rips
Can you
it.
guys help me with this one?
She rips it so she can move her legs, I'm guessing, a little bit more free.
No, because
Tactical.
when she shows up, it's already ripped. And it's like, it's long on the left and short on the right. I think they call them like the maxi dress.
Oh, here we
I
go.
Whoa. Sean did some
Fashion.
deep dives.
Female listeners, please help Sean out. At Sean's handle.
Help us out.
Anyway, she basically does pocket sand and she throws the long part of the skirt at him to cover his eyes while they're fighting. That was the note I had here.
Pocket sand.
She just pocket sand.
They go to fight, and it's really, really heated. It's really, really back and forth. And Geralt kind of gets a run for his money. She gets him across the chest really good. They even describe, like, he pays it no mind. Like, he just keeps going. You get the sense, I think this author does a really good job of, I'm not trying to say I'm any expert in sword fighting, but I know that, like, the typical sword fight does not last very long. Like in the movies where it's like minutes, it's like 5, 7, 10-minute sword fights. In real life, sword fights are done within a minute because it's hard to swing those things. And the goal is to kill the other person or injure them to the point to where they can't fight back. So eventually someone's going to mess up and eventually someone's going to take someone's limb off or something else.
It's a dance.
That's kind of what you get here is she goes to attack him after he feints her and she exposes her lower half with an upward strike and he just cuts the inside of her thigh with the tip of his sword and she immediately knows it's over. So I got the sense that like she knows that he cut right through and that she only has a few moments because she drops her sword immediately.
Just
she
the
falls
tip.
to the ground and she clenches her leg, but they describe how blood starts seeping through her, rivers of blood start seeping through her fingers around her thigh. And I was just like, damn, Renfrey, that was a good fight, but he's got you.
So there's definitely something ironic. The whole, like, she seduced him and then that's where he killed her vibe. I thought that was really, really unique, the way that the author tied it together. I didn't say
your
interesting,
brain
damn it.
just like I saw the smoke.
I saw it was like the math gif of just like doing math and all the equations.
And then she has this really human moment where she basically says, like, don't go. And she says the same thing last night. There was a really weird exchange the night before where she says, I'm cold, and then kind of snapped out of it last night. And then she promised, she's like, all right, I'm not going to kill him. And she's like, let's get down to business. And she says the same thing here. She says, I'm cold. And I didn't know, was there some sort of clairvoyance? Was she seeing the future? Did Geralt see the future and impose it on her? Did Stregobor get involved?
Let me put this
I was
on
really
you,
confused.
because I picked up on that too, but I then picked up on this. So later on, as well, here for listeners, she says she's cold, and Geralt says, does, nothing. The author specifically describes him just standing there and letting her die. I think that needs to be said, that he did what he needed to do after he made his decision. And
not only did she say I'm cold, she says, Geralt, hold me.
Yes. So then after she dies, they say a fine dagger hidden until now falls out of her grasp on her chest. So I think, and I could be wrong on this, I think she was trying to pull Geralt in so she could kill him at a last moment. Because when you first meet her as well, they describe that dagger on her right hip. She has her sword. On her left hip, she has a dagger. She doesn't use it throughout the whole fight. And then as she's dying, she tells Geralt, I'm cold. Hold me, like last night. And I think that was her goal, is that she was going to try to bring him in. But also, if you continue reading, you find out that Stregobor was using his magic crystal ball to watch this whole thing happen from his tower, and he made his way down and to view it.
When he knew it was safe.
Yeah, he knew it was safe now that she and her gang were dead. So he comes out and he starts talking all this smack like an ass. And then it gave him the thought, maybe she knew Stregobor would come out in hopes that he would get close to her, because the first thing Stregobor does is go to grab her body to take her back to the tower to do an autopsy. So maybe...
And prove that she's a
prove
monster.
that she's a monster.
This is the coolest line, I think, so far in this book, which is saying something.
Oh, I know
we
it.
say
I know
it
it, and I
every
love
time. Because as the wizard's going to go over, Stregobor is going to get her. It says, somebody the Witcher didn't know found the hilt of his sword and drew it. And dude, I just started drooling over that line because, one, I had the song, now you're just somebody that I used to know.
Oh, we got to edit that out. That was terrible, boys. That was really bad.
I'm keeping it. All right. But the fact, and then I was like, wait, what? Who's drawing his sword? But then you realize it's the Witcher. He doesn't even know who he is anymore. He draws his sword. He's like, don't touch a hair on her head or you'll lose yours. Like he's done. He's had enough. He just murdered all these people for nothing.
Yeah.
For absolutely nothing. And he's just like, dude, you're the last person I wanted to see right now. Like, get away from her. Get away from me. Just get out of here or I will kill you.
And Stregobor is kind of taken aback by it. Like, what do you mean? If I don't do an autopsy, we'll never know if she was a monster or not. And then Geralt's like, leave. Just leave before I decide to kill you too. And you kind of get the sense that Geralt was or is still questioning his decision, but he couldn't live with himself if he was wrong. So he just accepts that it's done and like compartmentalizes it.
It's this, again, the James Bond feel where like, I killed everyone. I'm not going to talk about it. Just give me my next mission.
Yeah.
Like, we're just not going to, I could use years and years of therapy, but we're not going there. I just need to keep moving forward.
do think that Geralt is feeling yet another emotion, another feeling. I think he genuinely feels guilt, even though he's trying to rationalize like, oh, I just don't want to know the answer. He is overwhelmed with guilt at this point because the whole time has been trying to do the right thing. And no matter what decision he made, it was the wrong choice. And there's nothing he could do about it. He has warned everybody. He said what he was going to do if option A, B, and C happened. And they were all relatively the same. And he still loses. Like, he does not win this one. This is where the hero loses. And, you know, the people in the town are throwing rocks at him, but he's got his sign up. So they're just like umbrella, like rain on an umbrella. They're just bouncing off his little force field. But this is the way I took it because it almost gave me chills. Like, he's still feeling the weight of those rocks hit him. You know, like, that is how it feels for him to be in that position. Is like, I just made
emotionally
the wrong choice. Everything was a wrong choice. Like, why am I here right now? And everyone is just against him because he just slaughtered everybody on their most important day of the year in front of the whole town.
Well, and that's
how do you bounce back?
So, and to kind of finish this up, because I want to talk about it as well, is Calderman finally catches up or just comes out of the crowd and just tells Geralt, leave and never come back. And I'm like, okay, people, these guys, these mercenaries, these thugs were going to hold you hostage until a wizard came out of a tower so he could be killed.
They mention that, though. They say that nobody knew what they knew. So no one.
Yeah.
And
I
it's that like
understand that.
it's that ignorance of the common people though, and this is kind of
The local nitwits.
the local nitwits. But they don't know the nature of the Witcher's business. They just know they saw him walking into town and they were blown away that monster. Oh my gosh! Like where was that thing? What is this guy? Oh, and everyone's interested, and they're blown away by his presence. They're not aware of the situation going on, and no matter what Geralt says in that moment, he is going to be wrong. He can't talk himself out of it. So it's like the alderman comes up. He's like, Geralt, are you good? That gash looks pretty deep. He goes, yeah, I'll live. He goes, good. Get out of here. Leave and never come back.
Yeah.
And the ultimate gut punch for Geralt. He's trying to do right by the town. He's trying to be a hero, and he gets pooped on by everybody.
Well, he just saved the town from like
mass murder,
being obliterated.
I don't know if it's him.
He just saved all of these people, and all the townsperson see is like stranger came in with a dead monster, and then just started slaughtering people in the middle of our market. All right, get him out of here. We want nothing to do with him. And Geralt's like, all right, I just saved you from a wizard monster fight. You're welcome. And the alderman kind of sees it, but he's more worried about his own neck.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, they had a get out of jail free pass from the king. You just revoked that with no authority. Just leave. Get out of here. Stop causing trouble for me.
Yeah.
Poor Geralt.
Poor Geralt. And I do have a prediction, because I know we're approaching the end of the episode, which is insane. I predict that based on this pattern that we're getting of the grain of truth, these folktale almost illusions that are coming into play, like this, Renfri's whole character is a heavily based Snow White illusion. Nivellen, we were kind of getting the inkling that he was Beauty and the Beast vibes from him, just like the low budget version. Mm-hmm. But my prediction is that in the next section, we're going to get some other monster or some other theme that will relate back to a fairy tale. I know that is very vague, but we don't know. We don't even have the voice of reason to base it off of yet. So I think it's going to be another fairy tale.
I looked up the name of it. The name of the next chapter is A Question of Price. So I want to know what the listeners think, because all of these have the moral is in the title. I wonder what the question of price is. What gets sold or who compromises for what price?
Ooh.
I'm curious what the listener thinks.
Yes, please, listener, because I have read ahead because I had a long drive, so I had to listen to more. But I'm excited to talk to you guys about it because it's awesome. It's just as good. I don't know. I think this chapter was definitely the pinnacle of moral dilemmas. I think you can't get much harder of a choice than Geralt had to face in this chapter. So that's kind of what I wanted to ask you guys this question. A few of the characters, we'll keep it quick, a few of the characters thought of lesser evils as different things. So do you guys think there is such a thing as a lesser evil?
I almost agree with what Renfri said. One of the things that she said, there's a lot of messed up things that she said, but the fact that there is always going to be a greater evil. Look at and I'm a huge comic book nerd, so I know that in like Marvel movies or in the comic books, there's always a bigger, badder villain. Because it would be no fun if you defeated the greatest villain first. Then there's nothing after that. It's like, what are you going to fight, a common thief, a bank robber? Like, that's not interesting. But when it's somebody who's threatening like the entire world or an entire village or city or whatever, that's when we get pulled in. And all of the things that Geralt has had to fight will affect a lot of people. Like the Striga killed people. That is an evil. Right. And now that we have this morality of people, or can people be monsters, or can monsters be justified in their actions because they're just beasts? They don't have conscious thoughts. Maybe that question becomes really hard to answer. And I don't think there is a lesser evil. There is definitely a pick your poison is a better phrase that I would choose. Geralt had to make the best of two equally awful positions. He had to take a human life. Those are the same choice. There was no lesser for Geralt, and that was his entire argument. So I don't think so in this circumstance. So
then before I answer your question, Lou, I'm going to throw out another question here, and I just want a yes or a no. Was Renfri a monster?
No. Definitely not.
I say yes because the signs didn't work on her, and she knew it.
She's more sociopath than monster, I think. But sociopaths have been
Was.
called monsters, modern monsters, if we think about
Wait, hold on,
reality.
Tio. Back to Sean's question. The signs did not work on her, therefore she is a monster?
Yeah, because if she was human, they would work on her very easily.
We don't have any evidence of that.
The Striga
I think she was.
had magic used against it.
She was a monster?
She was a monster.
So I guess I was reading that in a way that it was lending credence to Stregobor's theory of we don't know exactly what's wrong with these monsters, but we know that they're monsters.
Yeah.
So to me, that was just another tally in the monster column, if you will.
But moving on. Answer my
But
question now.
to answer your question, Lou, I would say I kind of view it like this, right? Have you ever gone to order like a medium drink and they're like, or a large drink and they're like, we only have small and medium. Well, that's not how that works. Medium's a relative term. You have a small and a large. You don't have a medium because you don't have a third size. They're like, no, we just have small and medium.
Lou, did you think you'd get this when you asked?
No, I did not. But I'm fascinated. Keep going.
I love the comparison.
So-
It's brilliant.
So medium is a relative term here, and lesser evil is also a relative term. So it's still
So you
evil.
need a spectrum,
It's
is what
still
you're saying.
bad.
Can you put evil on a spectrum, or is evil evil? That's Geralt's argument. Evil, is what he said to Strigobor.
Oh yeah, no, evil's on a spectrum. Absolutely.
Do you mean like
Because
if somebody
you
in a
don't-
parking lot took your parking spot, that's pretty evil, but they don't deserve to die? So-
Right? Yeah. So,
unless
so
you're driving with my
is it a
dad, he'll be
crime?
like, that person deserves to die.
Is it bad if somebody steals $5?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is it worse if they steal
I wouldn't call
500?
stealing $5 evil, though.
But that's what I'm saying. There's a
Yeah,
spectrum.
but bad's different than evil. Good people can do bad things.
Sure. But can you get to the point where bad is almost evil?
Oh my gosh. Dude,
It's a spectrum. I'm saying.
Not
it's
that
a
I want
spectrum.
these answered all right now, but these were things in my notes. I said, what is a monster? What is evil? And what is justice? Geralt doesn't feel that his own actions were justified. He can't justify anyone's actions. There is a huge justice theme as well as a morality theme in this whole thing. Is like, what is right? What is wrong? What is the best choice? And there is none in this chapter. And I love that because in all books, in all stories like this, there's either victory or failure. And Geralt has had his fair share of both of these things. And this is a huge failure. He failed in all areas. Even though he killed all these people, it's a fail. He still loses. And
I just want to add on to
it's
your
nuts.
questions there. I want to know, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
So here, real quick.
I think Geralt fell in love with a monster and then had to kill
I don't
her.
think she was a monster. But here, yes, Sean,
Geralt
there is
did.
a lesser evil. There is such a thing as a lesser evil, right? In your opinion.
Yeah, there's a
Yes,
spectrum.
I think that
Matthew,
there
was
is.
you as well? There is a lesser evil.
I agree that there's a spectrum, but I think evil is evil. If you're using that word to describe somebody like you're an evil person, they automatically became, don't use the word evil if you don't mean it. It's like, I hate you. The word hatred has a huge connotation to it. Like,
All right.
that's the absolute word. So
I'll take
torn.
those answers. I'll take
I'm
the
torn.
listener. Please chime in. What is evil? Is there a lesser evil? Is no matter what you do make you evil, or do certain actions make you evil versus just bad actions? I'm very interested to hear on everyone's take on this because I feel like a lot about what you have to say or what you have experienced will determine what you say here. Because I feel like if you've experienced evil, you will then have a notion of what is lesser evil. But I digress. We're getting very long-winded here, but it was very interesting talk and very interesting chapter, and it's a very interesting episode. If you like what we talked about, go watch it on Netflix. You can watch it right now.
That's a nightcap for all
That
of
is a
you
nightcap.
drinking along with the drinking game. That was like 5 interesting, 6.
Interesting. We will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening.
If you haven't died from alcohol,
If you
poisoning,
haven't.
good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Tune in next time. Hey, it's Matt again. I just now realized that we mentioned James Bond a lot, and this is our 007th episode. It's pretty weird. Anyway, thanks for checking out this death-heavy, reference-heavy, and interesting-heavy episode of Hearth Bound. If you liked what you heard today, you're going to love the nonsense we post on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at HearthboundPod. We're just three idiots that happen to share the same login info, so what could possibly go wrong? At the time of recording, we've passed 450 downloads from all of you amazing people out there who have listened, rated, and reviewed us on Apple Podcasts, binged us on Spotify, and listened to us on your favorite podcasting app. We just found out that Google and iHeartRadio have added us to their amazing collection of podcasts, so wherever you decide to check us out, we'll be waiting. That came out a little creepy. Moving on. If you want to be some of the first to support us around the hearth, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Hearthbound podcast. There you can join one of our exclusive Patreon guilds. We've been putting together some new bonus content and loot, like stickers, bookmarks, pins, uncut episodes, embarrassing editor sound bits, and an invite to our Hearthbound Discord. We think of something new every week, so make sure to check us out and support. We look forward to talking to you soon, but until then, cheers and see you in the next episode of Hearthbound.